Greetings to all lovers of tales, myths, and legends. In the Mediterranean Sea, on the island of Crete, there is an amazing legend about a brave youth named Theseus and a dreadful monster living in an impenetrable labyrinth. This creature, half human and half bull, wanders in the darkness of twisted corridors in search of a victim, and its name is the Minotaur. Once every 9 years, to satisfy the bloodthirsty bull, 7 youths and 7 maidens are offered as sacrifices and sent into the labyrinth, from which they are not destined to return alive. There, the terrible Minotaur tears them apart and devours them. Today, we will talk about the Minotaur. Who is he and where did he come from? How did Theseus defeat him, and why does the legend of the Minotaur have a political context? Let's start with the birth of the Minotaur. During the time when he came into the world in Knossos, the capital of Crete, Minos ruled. Once, the king asked Poseidon to provide him with a sacrificial animal for the gods, and the sea deity granted his request. Poseidon sent a beautiful white bull from the depths of the sea. However, Minos was so captivated by this animal that he decided to keep it and sacrificed another, less attractive bull instead. Concealing deceit from the gods was impossible, of course. Poseidon learned of this and decided to punish the king. He instilled an unnatural passion for the snow-white beauty of the bull in Minos' wife, Pasiphae. She became infatuated with it to the point of madness. One day, while intoxicated, Pasiphae revealed her unusual desire to Daedalus, a local inventor. He wanted to help the queen and constructed a hollow wooden cow, covered it with hides, and Pasiphae climbed inside. This strange contraption was placed in a meadow where the bull grazed. In this way, Pasiphae's passion was satisfied, and after some time, she gave birth to a son half human, half bull. Upon seeing this, Minos flew into a rage. He tasked Daedalus, the same craftsman who had assisted Pasiphae, with constructing the most terrifying prison in the world. Thus, the Knossos labyrinth was created, a prison without cells or dungeons, at the center of which the Minotaur had its lair. Here, the bloodthirsty son of Minos awaited his victims, tearing through the silence of the corridors with his terrifying roar. Criminals were sent to be devoured by the monster, and later, Minos found a way to solidify his power with the help of his stepson. And now, the legend takes us to Attica, where the Cretan prince, Androgeus, arrived to participate in the Panathenaic Games. He excelled in everything: wrestling, running, javelin throwing, and even singing, becoming a true star. In Athens, Androgeus befriended the sons of Pallas, the enemies of the local king, Aegeus, who decided to destroy him. When Androgeus set off for Thebes in Attica, he was killed by the local inhabitants, following the orders of the king. The news of his son's death sent Minos into a fury, and he blamed the Athenians for Androgeus' demise, sending troops to punish the murderers. However, he failed to capture Athens and appealed to the gods for assistance, which they did not deny. Drought, plague, and famine befell Attica, leaving the Athenians no choice but to surrender and make a peace agreement. According to the agreement, they had to pay tribute. Every 9 years, 7 virgin youths and an equal number of maidens were sent to the island of Crete, into the labyrinth of the Minotaur. So, what did this bloodthirsty monster actually look like? Let's try to imagine it. Take a muscular, powerful male body that any athlete would envy. Massive muscles with bulging veins, capable of tearing flesh with bare hands. Instead of a human head, there is the head of a raging bold pure, untamed fury. There is no trace of consciousness or anything human in the eyes of the Minotaur. It is a true monster, foaming at the mouth, seeking a new bloody victim. Its roar is so powerful that it can cause earthquakes, and only sacrifices can appease it. The image of the Minotaur is truly repulsive, terrifying, and gruesome. But the myth itself has a political context. Why? We will find out now. In the early history of Greece, Crete was a kind of superpower and had a tremendous influence over the mainland cities, aided by a strong fleet. However, soon Athens emerged as a rival to Crete. According to the legend, Athens initially had to submit to the stronger opponent. Here, the myth of the Minotaur served as a tool for political propaganda, and the creature itself symbolized the tyranny of Crete, while the labyrinth represented absolute power, and the Athenian youths and maidens were symbols of the people's suffering. This legend portrayed the Cretans in a negative light as true barbarians. But the tyranny of Crete could not last forever, and in Attica, a true hero was born who was capable of defeating the vicious Minotaur Theseus. His mother was Aethra, the princess of treason, but when it comes to paternity, things are not so simple. According to the myth, Theseus was born from both the god Poseidon and the Athenian king Aegeus. How did this happen? As the legend goes, once in treason, the king of Athens, Aegeus, stopped by. He went to the oracle of Delphi to inquire if he would have a son. The enigmatic advice he received was, "Do not untie the bottom of the wine bag until you reach Attica." The local king, Theseus, understood the meaning behind it, drugged Aegeus, and put him to sleep with his daughter Aethra. The hope was that their child would rule over Athens. However, on that same night, the sea god Poseidon also shared the bed with Aethra. Afterward, Theseus' daughter became pregnant, and Aegeus left for his homeland, asking Aethra to raise the child in treason in secret, claiming that he feared the schemes of his rivals. Before leaving, he hid his sword and sandals under a massive rock, telling Aethra that when their son could lift the rock, he must come to Athens as the true prince. Theseus was raised by Theseus and from a young age showed intelligence, bravery, and extraordinary strength. He had his mentor, Conad, and was trained in wrestling by Forbant and in hunting by the centaur Chiron. At the age of 16, Theseus learned from his mother that his father was Aegeus, and he lifted the rock and took the sword and sandals. This marked the beginning of his long and arduous journey to Athens, but that is a different story, during which Aegeus recognized his son and declared him his heir. Around the same time, a delegation from Crete arrived in Athens to collect the tribute, led by King Minos himself, who had to select the victims for the Minotaur. It is not surprising that among them was the newly discovered son of Aegeus. However, Theseus was not disheartened by such a fate. On the contrary, the young man was determined and optimistic, declaring that he would defeat the Minotaur and return home. Before departing, Aegeus asked his son that if Theseus were to return victorious, the helmsman should raise a white sail on his ship instead of the black one used to send victims to the Minotaur. This way, when the ship appeared on the horizon, the king would know whether his son was alive or not. And here Minos brings the prisoners to Knossos, where his daughter Ariadne meets him. She embraces her father and looks with interest at the captives he brought. Her gaze stops at Theseus, and unexpectedly for herself, she falls in love with him. Ariadne cannot bear the thought of his death, so she seeks advice from Daedalus, the creator of the Labyrinth. He tells her how to navigate the dark tunnels and gives her a ball of thread, which the smitten Ariadne secretly takes to the prison cell where Theseus is kept. Ariadne offers him a means of escape, a sword and the thread, on the condition that Theseus agrees to marry her. He reluctantly agrees. To find his way out, all he needs to do is tie one end of the thread at the entrance of the labyrinth, and he will easily find his way back. The next day, the unfortunate victims are thrown into the labyrinth to be devoured by the Minotaur, like sheep in a slaughterhouse. Among them is our hero. Following Ariadne's advice, Theseus ties the end of the thread at the entrance and leads everyone deeper into the labyrinth. He is full of courage and confidence, unafraid of the monster. However, his fellow prisoners are uncertain about the Athenian prince. They fear death and do not know when the dreaded half-bull creature will appear. Panic overwhelms them, they scream, cry, and wail. If only they knew that their noise only hastens their demise. The commotion awakens the Minotaur at the center of the labyrinth, and its roar announcing the bloody feast echoes through the dark corridors. The sound becomes Theseus' guide. He steps on the bones of previous victims that crunch under his feet, indicating that the monster is near. Ariadne's thread is dwindling in Theseus' hands, but he believes he will escape alive. And just around the corner, a dark, horned figure appears, the Minotaur. The beast does not expect any resistance from its prey, let alone an attack. Caught off guard, it doesn't even have time to draw its labyrinth from behind its back before Theseus' sword pierces its flesh. But that's not the end. The wounded Minotaur, though injured, is ready to fight, and the sounds of their battle reverberate off the walls of the labyrinth. In the end, Theseus emerges victorious, and the wretched, monstrous creature, the curse of Minos, is dead. However, it's too early to celebrate. Before dawn, Theseus must find the others, escape the labyrinth, and flee the island. He accomplishes this task effortlessly. Waiting for him on the shore is his ship, with the Cretan queen aboard, and he sets sail to Athens as the conqueror. However, blinded by his victory, Theseus forgets the promise he made to his father and sails to Athens under a black sail. Seeing this, Aegeus throws himself into the sea from a high cliff in despair. Since then, that sea is called the Aegean Sea. As for Ariadne, Theseus does not treat her well, but I will tell you about that another time. Thus ends the myth of the Minotaur, at least in its classical version. However, in my opinion, it is worth mentioning less-known alternative interpretations of this legend. According to one of them, the Minotaur was an incredibly cruel man and a teacher of Minos, named simply Tor. Minos held competitions in memory of Androgeus, offering Athenian boys as prizes. Tor eagerly participated in these competitions, defeating all opponents until he was defeated by the 10th king of Athens, Theseus. Based on this, the Athenians were freed from paying tribute to Minos. According to another version, Tor was a military commander who engaged in battle with Theseus at the harbor and was killed. The story of the terrible man-bull was invented much later to add more color. Nevertheless, the Minotaur firmly established itself not only in Greek mythology but also in popular culture, games, and fantasy. If you have ever encountered it anywhere, feel free to share in the comments. To stay informed about mythical creatures and be the first to know, subscribe to the channel by clicking the subscribe button.